All right, guys, submission ready here with World Series of Fighting President and legend of the kickboxing and MMA world, Ray Sefo. Ray, it's a pleasure to have you here in Australia. How you going today?
I'm good. I'm glad the weigh-ins are done, but I'm good.
Ray, you're no stranger to the country. What do you think of the growth of the sport in here in Australia for MMA and kickboxing in general?
Obviously, kickboxing is a huge sport here in Australia, as it is in New Zealand. MMA, obviously, for the past, I want to say 5 years, it's starting to grow. And from what I hear, now being in Adelaide, I'm hearing that's a sold-out crowd. So that's saying something. So I'm looking forward to that and excited about it.
Now, Ray, let's talk about Kiwi MMA. Obviously, there's a lot of exciting fighters coming out of the country. A couple of names off the top of your mind. Obviously, you're a legend over there. Every time we speak to someone from New Zealand, they always talk about Ray Sefo, the legend. Ray Sefo's the best. Who are a couple of young kids coming out of there that you have your eye on that you think, hey, this guy might be a star in the future?
Well, there's obviously there's some good guys that's training with Lolo Himuli, who's one of my former coaches. Also works with Mark Hunt. But the sport is still young in New Zealand, and it's growing. It's definitely growing, and I think it's just a matter of time before we see a lot more talent come out of there.
Now, we're going to touch on Mark Hunt in just a second, but as far as your fighting career, you haven't officially called it quits. You say you want to have maybe 1 or 2 fights possibly this year. How's that looking? Do you have any opponents? And how long will we continue to see Ray Sefo fight for?
That's a good question. I mean, I've kind of somewhat committed myself to saying that 2015 would be the last year. And that's, again, I'm not getting any younger. But in saying that, I'd like to have 1 more fight or 2 more fights. I was just in Switzerland for the Fight for Cancer charity event there. And they talked to me about fighting. And so, I said, listen, let me go to Australia, get this out of the way, come back to Vegas, and then we'll talk. And so, there's a possibility that I'll have a few fights, maybe 1 or 2 kickboxing fights in Switzerland, and then hopefully finish off, the last fight in my hometown, Auckland, New Zealand. So we'll see what happens. But time is the essence right now because I don't have that much time, and because I'm so busy also with everything else that I'm doing. So we'll see.
Now, Mark Hunt is obviously a huge star in MMA, but he's also one of your previous opponents. People remember the amazing battle that you two guys had. Mark was recently interviewed actually in New Zealand, and he mentioned when he finished up his fights in the UFC, he might be actually interested in possibly having a rematch with the great Ray Sefo. Right. Let me ask you something, Ray. Who knows how life turns out? It's a small world. If the circumstances are correct, if it all presents itself, would you be interested in another fight with Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that fight really established who Mark and I are as fighters. Although I won that fight, but everybody got to see what Mark is made of. You know what I mean? And so, and Mark is, him and I are friends, and I consider him a friend. I support him 100% in his career and he's had an amazing career. So we also have talked about, getting back in there and mixing it up. And so, if time presents itself and time is right, then I think it could happen.
Just on that, what kind of conversations do you guys have? Just take us into the conversations for a second. What do you guys say to each other? Like we're a fly on the wall. What kind of stuff gets said?
We talk about his training. We talk about certain things that's going on, just random stuff. And then, like when we were in Japan the last time together, I think Brad was fighting and Mark was on the card as well. And, we were like, hey, have you heard about it? There's a couple of people talking about putting this fight together between you and I. And he's like, yeah, no, that's right. And so we were talking, going back and forth. I said, yeah, we should make it happen. This is not, yeah, definitely. Let's make it happen.
I just want to touch on your fight between Mark. You guys had some really crazy exchanges. You were both taunting each other, making faces, and then going punch for punch. What was going through your mind? I think the average citizen would be either knocked out, dead, or in severe pain. You guys were just eating it. What was going through your mind?
Nothing really. I think at that point in time, it was a matter of, again, Mark and I are both from down under, and Mark and I knew each other as just, hey, how you doing? And I think that fight itself really bonded us and made us connect as not only as fighters but as people and friends and what have you. And so, and I think it was just a matter of all pride to see who was the one that's going to be standing. And at the end of the fight, we were both standing. So it made it for a good match where, you know, Mark was wanting to win, I was wanting to win. And it's funny because later, Jerome Lebana and Nusa and Peters and these guys were like, there is no way we're going to stand and bang like that with these guys. It's crazy. You know what I mean? So, but I think that fight really defined who we are as fighters. And so, although we both have had some great battles, you know, with other top level fighters, but that one itself, I think, really stood out. And to this day, I think it's still regarded as the #1 fight in K1 history.
And just finally, on that Mark Hunt fight, if you guys ever do meet up one more time, last question on the topic, how would you see the second meeting between you two going? Would you do anything differently? Are there any other outcomes that you'd see in this one? Or would it be a continuation of two guys staying there just taking the punches?
I think it'll be round 4 from the last time. I honestly think so. Because, again, Mark is that type of fighter, and he's not going to take a back step, and I'm not going to take a back step. So I think it's going to go from round 3 to round 4, and then it'll just continue from there. And, again, the outcome, you know, in my mind, it'll be still the same, but in Mark's mind, it might be different. You know what I mean? So, but that's what makes it a great fight, is because we're both willing to go out there and put it all on the line.
Now, in terms of you yourself, your career at the moment, people know you as the legendary kickboxer, but now people know you as Ray Sefo, the president of World Series of Fighting. In terms of the company, we remember a few years ago when you got it started, people were excited. They were saying, look, here's a fighter that's starting a company for fighters. When you had your original idea of the company as opposed to now, how close have you come to your original, I guess, dream and idea and image of the company?
You know, I feel like our first year was great, and then I think last year I know this, we hit some bumps along the way, but you know, that's what's happened with anything, you know what I mean, anything in life, whether it's fighting, promotion, entertainment, as a whole, really. And so I think now we're starting to get back onto that, where for example, we have 3-4 cards already sorted, where this past 10 months is kind of being like dragging a little bit, but it's all positive now. And I think, you know, there's been a few changes that's been made, which is, it's again, like I said, it's very positive changes. And I think we're heading in the right direction. And I'm happy with the way things are moving forward now.
Ray, World Series of Fighting obviously has been around for a while, and the landscape's changed. Everything's always changing in the world of MMA now. Obviously, UFC is still the number one company. Bellator's made inroads with what they're doing. Where do you see World Series of Fighting in the big picture, and how do you see them? And also, share your vision for the next few years. Where would you like to see it?
Well, you know, again, we're only 2 years old, really, you know, in terms of being out in the public and having shows. And in the 2 years that we've been in operation, we're in over 100 countries around the world. We've had some international fights, like, for example, in Canada, in Nicaragua. We're right now talking to partners in China. There was a setback a little bit with Japan, but that's, you know, kind of like moving forward again. I had meetings when I was in Switzerland last, and so there's some positive steps moving forward in terms of going internationally. Where do I want to see it? I want to be on every TV there is. If you're watching TV and we're on, I want you to be that guy tuning into World Series of Fighting. Obviously, again, like I said, we're a young company. I mean, we're 2 years old, but I think we've come very far in terms of 2 years, and you know, in another 2 years, I think we'll be, like I've said from the start, you know, we got to crawl before we run. And I feel like we're starting to jog a little bit. You know what I mean? So we'll see.
Now, World Series of Fighting recently had a departure in Melvin Guillard. Melvin Guillard did an infamous interview with us in which he said a few not so nice things about World Series of Fighting. Look, that's how he felt.
Right.
He obviously he said he was going to fight his fight against Aussie. Then he was going to go for that title, possibly go to the UFC in the future. He soon afterwards pulled out, didn't make his medicals. Did he make any attempt to try and make those medicals or plead his case with World Series of Fighting?
No, he didn't. Matter of fact, I haven't spoken to him at all, other than, we had given him a load of time to get his medicals in, just like everybody else. Everybody had medicals due that Friday, which was a week prior to the fight. His medicals didn't come in, so Ali sends out an email saying, listen, we're going to give you till Monday, 10 a.m., and if the medicals don't come in, we're going to pull you from the fight. And this was sent out to, I believe, to Melvin, but also to his management team. On top of that, Mike, our PR guy, had reached out to him and his team to get do interviews and PR for his up and coming fight, and obviously he didn't do any of that. So, which in his contract he's obligated to do. I think it was 12 o'clock. I sent out an email saying, "Hey guys, listen, this is completely ridiculous. You guys have left me no choice but to pull Melvin from the card, because we've been trying, my team, from the PR team, from the matchmaker to myself, have reached out to try and get this sorted, and it hasn't. So we pulled him the card, and and that was that. And it got to the point where we just said, Ali and I talked, and it was just a lot easier to just let him, release him and let him go.
And I have to ask, on our show, Melvin did say that there were a few things that World Series of Fighting promised him and apparently weren't delivered. Did Melvin speak to you about any of those things? Did he ever bring anything up, go, hey, Ray, or, Ali, there's things that aren't happening? What's happening with that?
That's new to me, because he's never talked to me about anything. I feel like we have treated him more than fair. And, again, listen, I'm a fighter, so I'm going to fight for the fighters first and foremost. But when you're a fighter that's been difficult and think you're bigger than the sport, then I'm not going to tolerate that at all. I don't care who you are. And so, again, it's hard to say, because sometimes fighters think they're more than what they're bigger than the sport, and that's never going to be the case. You know what I mean? And so, listen, the guy is a talented fighter, so I wish him the best. But at the same time, it's like, you got to understand that it doesn't matter which promotion you go to, you got to show respect, and you got to give respect. And for you to get respect back, you got to show them the same kind of, treat people the way you want to be treated. It's really simple.
Ray, with the things played out between World Series of Fighting and Melvin, looking back on it all, do you at all regret that you guys ended up signing him in the first place? And also, is the door closed for Melvin to ever come back to the company, or do you think if he changes his ways, you might give him another chance?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think any door should be closed to a fighter like Melvin, because Melvin's an entertaining fighter. He'll come to fight. But at the same time, fighting is one thing. You as a fighter, there are things that comes with it, especially in the U.S. Part of your job is to market yourself and promote yourself as much as we promote you. So, and you got to be available to do interviews and things like that. And if you're not, then it's very difficult to try and market you and try to put you out there. So, again, fighting is just one part of what your career is. You know what I mean? And so, no, the door is not closed to Melvin. But in saying that, he's got to, again, step up and show some respect to whoever he works with.
Now, the big news over the last few days has obviously been the Reebok deal in the UFC. A lot of fighters have come out. They're not too happy with the figures. Just wanted to know, what are your thoughts? It's a bit of a game changer in the industry. Obviously, the UFC has been creeping towards that level of you can't bring in outside sponsors, and now it's pretty much going to be gone altogether. As a president of World Series of Fighting, what are your thoughts?
I can't speak on that matter, because I don't know too much about it at all, to be honest. All I know is what I think as much as you do, what you've read in Twitter or Facebook or whatever social media that's out there. But in terms of worse is a fight, I mean, obviously, we're not even looking at that kind of scenario. And again, the UFC's got these big opportunities. So again, it's very hard for me to kind of really speak on anything that I don't know much about. You know what I mean? So.
I mean, that's a great point there, Ray. You mentioned that it's something that you guys aren't doing a World Series of Fighting.
Right.
If an opportunity did present itself, let's say Nike comes up to World Series of Fighting. They say, hey, we're going to put a big tick and just do it on all your fighters, right? Just do it. Great slogan.
Right.
Would you consider a similar structure? I mean, you don't know very much about their structure, but from what you've heard, would you consider it for World Series of Fighting?
I wouldn't say no. You know what I mean? But it's something that I would have to sit down with my team and talk about and discuss. Does it benefit the fighters? Does it benefit the company? So all these things got to be taken into account, and we'll see. But it's not a closed off matter or a no to that. You know what I mean? So
no, absolutely. You got to be open with these matters. A lot of fighters, negative things to say on Twitter. Obviously, you stand up for the fighters and the organization. Say the fighters come first. If you're in a situation like the UFC where a lot of your fighters said, "Hey, Ray, we're unhappy. We're not going to be able to make the money that we need to make. We feel upset about this," and a whole bunch of them said this to you on Twitter, on social media, personally, would you change it?
Again, it's personally, if I had to answer that from myself,
personally,
100% I would, because I want my guys, my team, my fighters to be happy with whatever they're or to be paid what they deserve. So in saying that, me personally, yes, I would change it. But again, when it comes to the such a big corporate decision like that, it would have to be a team decision. And again, like I said earlier, I can only speak for what I can do and what I know, but I can't really speak too much about the other situation because I don't know what the structure is at the UFC and how that's all done. You know what I mean? So, but it's something that obviously I want to see the fighters get paid what they deserved, and so bottom line.
One of the last few questions, Ray, Jon Jones, he's been in a situation, another one. It seems like it's affecting the sport in general in the sense that everybody's talking about it. Everyone's got their own opinion. People are debating whether the UFC did the right thing. What's your take on this whole Jon Jones situation and his hit and run?
It's again, I've only read and heard what's been in the social media, and what I can say is I wish him the best, and I wish that he gets help and gets cleaned up and get back, because I mean he's a phenomenal talent. He's great for the sport, and so I think what UFC has done, I think Jon Jones has kind of really given them no choice but to do what they did, and I think in some, it also sets the bar in terms of saying, guys, although it doesn't matter if you're champion or not, you're representing the company as well as yourself, as well as the sport. So I think it was, I think that sends out that message, and I think it's a positive one. Again, I feel for Jon Jones because I've met him many a times, and he's always says hello to me, and is always a great guy. So I wish him the very best. But and I hope that he does get cleaned up and come back to the sport, because again, like I said, he's a phenomenal talent, great fighter, and he's proven that time and time again. So I wish him nothing but the best.
Now, Ray, speaking of phenomenal talent, World Series 21, World Series of Fighting 21, June 5th, a lot of great matchups.
Right.
We love Lance Palmer. We love a lot of the people on the card. Right. For the fans watching at home who haven't heard much about World Series Fighting, give us a couple of matchups you're excited about. What are a couple of matchups we need to keep on the radar?
Well, when you talk about Lance Palmer and Peters-Getty, I mean, those are young talents, very always brings it. And Lance Palmer defending his title. I mean, that guy is phenomenal talent, another phenomenal talent. And just his speed, his skill level, and I mean, he's just a complete mixed martial artist. And then you look across the cage, and you got someone like Peters-Getty, who's been in the game for a very long time, great kickboxer, has great ground game as well. So that's going to be an exciting fight. And then you look at the heavyweight co-main, which is Smolinio Rama versus Blagoy Ivanov, and that's going to be a banging fight also, because those are two big guys who like to come out and put it on the line. So I'm super excited about those two matchups.
Ray, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your stay in Australia, and we hope to see you fighting again soon.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.